My name is McKenzie. I worked with Alberta Agriculture for about 38 years. 32 of those was an agronomy research scientist, and I worked out of the Agriculture Centre at Lethbridge, and that's where we're located right now, is on land just south of the Agriculture Centre, and it's now controlled by Lethbridge College.
My name is Jeremy Boychyn. I'm the Agronomy Research Extension Specialist with the Alberta Wheat and Alberta Barley Commissions.
Really what we're going to do today is just sort of demonstrate how to actually take soil samples, and it's very critical. Soil sampling can give, and analysis can give farmers a very good indication of the nutrient levels in their soil. So soil sampling, in my mind, is actually critically important for farmers because it allows them to take samples from their fields, have them analyzed, and they can determine the various nutrient levels for about 13 different elements. And then from there, decide which ones are adequate, deficient, or marginal. And then from there, they can develop a very sound, wise fertilizer management plan for each of their fields and each of their crops. You can actually sample in the fall or the spring. Ideally, sampling in the spring gives you the best estimate of nutrients because just before you start seeding your spring seeded crops. So ideally in the spring is going to give you the most accurate numbers, but it doesn't allow you time to do your fertilizer planning and purchase your fertilizer. So really the next best option then is doing your sampling in late fall when soil temperatures have cooled down to less than 5 to less than 7 degrees Celsius. And once the soils have cooled down, microbial activity slowed down, and so then you're not going to really have much change from fall to spring. So really fall sampling can be almost as good as spring sampling, but then it allows that farmer to really take the time to do his fertilizer management planning for each of his fields, and then from there purchase his fertilizer so he's ready to go next spring. One of the things that farmers are often faced with is how to actually soil sample your fields. And really the first thing you have to do is decide, are your fields quite level and uniform? Well, fields around us here are just very gently undulating. So just going out and doing random sampling of fields that are quite uniform with uniform soils is perfect. If you happen to be on land it's more rolling in topography and more variable in your soils, then you have to do some planning in terms of maybe working with a precision agronomist to look at your fields and identify uniquely different soil management zones and then sample each of those zones separately. Well, a lot of work has been done over the years to determine how many soil samples to actually take in a field, and that's a very important question. In my mind, for each field you need to be taking at least 20 to 25 cores to get a good representation. It's really important to get a representative subsample of the soils in your field, and to do that you need to really take that 20 to 25 cores. If you only take 5 or 6 or 7, odds are it's not going to be representative, and then the analysis you're going to get back is not going to be representative of the true nutrient levels in your field. Well, there's various ways you can take soil samples in your field. One of them is just doing them randomly, so you travel in your field in a zigzag or W pattern, taking your 20 to 25 cores, and maybe even benchmark each one of those locations so you can go back year after year and take those samples randomly in the field. The other one is to actually go to a particular spot in the field, we call that benchmark sampling, and take all of your cores in that half an acre to 2 acre area, be representative of that field or that soil management zone. The next step is critically important. For Alberta farmers, you want to do first call and have utilities come in and mark all of the buried utilities in each field, so then when you're sampling or the soil sampler comes to your field, they're not going to hit a buried utility line. When you're actually sampling each site, you want to make sure you go down to at least 24 inches, and then when you bring up that core, break it into 0 to 6, 6 to 12, and 12 to 24 inch depths. That 0 to 6 inch depth is critically important because all of the soil test correlation work that we've done with phosphorus and potassium has been with that depth. So make sure it's a 0 to 6 inch depth. Then it's nice to have the 6 to 12 inch depth. That's kind of a zone of mineral enrichment. And then 12 to 24 inches is also very important because again, all the soil test calibration work we've done with nitrogen and sulfur, because those are mobile nutrients, have been down to that 24 inch depth. So very important to go down to that depth. The next step, once you pull up the soil core, is you want to break it up into 0 to 6, 6 to 12, or 12 to 24 inch depths, and then put each of those depths into a separate labeled either plastic or rubber pail. And once you've got your 25 samples collected, then it's time to put them in bags. But make sure each bag is labeled with the field and legal land location, soil management zone if it's spread up into zones, and then the soil sample depth. Once you have your samples and you're ready to bag them, I always encourage people to put them into a breathable coffee type bag. If it's a warmer day, you want to make sure you put those soil samples into a cooler to keep them cool before they go to the lab or they go to your shop to dry them out. The next step, once you've got all those samples taken from all of your fields, your option really then is to send the samples directly to the lab in the cooler so they get them overnight. Then once the lab gets them, they'll lay them out, let them air dry before they do the analysis. So Alberta Agriculture has done a lot of research for the last 40 years in terms of the methodologies for soil analysis, and those are correlated to crop yield increase. So very important when you're sending your samples to a lab that they're using the recommended analytical procedures by Alberta Agriculture. So the value of soil testing is really once you get your soil test results back, then the farmer can very critically review the results and decide which nutrients are adequate, marginal, or deficient, and from there start their 4R fertilizer planning for next year.
Farmers can gain a lot of value from soil testing. If we think of it in a lens of 4R nutrient stewardship, we're getting an idea of what is actually in our soil when we do soil testing. And then we can figure out whether we're applying the right rate to our fields to get the yields we're looking for, and at the right place, whether that be within a field or between fields.